Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and I haven't done one of my list videos in a while, over a year in fact. That was like 2 cameras ago, so figured it was time to go ahead and do another one of those. And since the last one that I did was over player mistakes, figured it's probably time to go ahead and pick on Game Masters again, list some of the more common Game Master errors that could hurt a game or just not work as well as a Game Master might expect them to. I've done these lists before with my 7 deadly Game Master sins, and then a second one, and then a third one, but this time I'm only going to list 5, because, that's just my mood. Oh, ripoff. Some of these aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves, the problem being more of a excess or just poor implementation, while others, they should just be avoided altogether. How about you stop your yammering and just get on with it already? Okay, well, then in no particular order, then that's just the order that I chose for them. Number 1, the Kidnapper. After seeing Todd get pulled into the back of that van, you guys receive a text message and it has his photograph in it and it says, "Stop snooping or your friend dies." Aw, damn, we gotta save him. I'll start analyzing that photograph and see if I can find any clues as to where he is. Good idea. I'm gonna start asking around the neighborhood, see if anybody knows anything about that white van. What am I doing? Oh, you're drugged and unconscious. Can I roll to wake up? No, they've got you pretty heavily sedated. Unless the other players find you in time, you might never wake up. That sounds cool for them, but what the hell do I do? Pray for rescue. Kidnapping a major character is a pretty common thing that you'll find in TV and movies, where the rest of the heroes now have to race against time in order to rescue their colleague or friend. Now that is great for TV, but in a game, it's not that much fun for the player whose character has been taken out as a plot point as it is for the other players. And now that player just has to sit there bored watching everybody else play as they wait for their rescue. Well, it could be possible for a Game Master to abduct or capture a player character and then allow that character to act, maybe how they get free or how they get to call for help. But that also ends up splitting the party up, and that can lead to some of the regular hurdles that a Game Master players might have when you're trying to run 2 games at the same time. An alternate is just to simply kidnap an NPC, and then you can allow all the players to be involved in their rescue. Or you could just simply abduct the entire party, and now the group as a whole is taking part in a daring escape trying to get free from their captors. But kidnapping just a single PC and then forcing that player to sit there and watch as everyone else plays the game? Yeah, don't do that. Next, the NPC Scene. After escaping the Brigand's Tower, you bring Lord Thurgood back to the castle, and there, before the entire court, he storms to the front of the Great Hall and confronts his brother. "You had me locked away so you can steal my land." "Poppycock," the brother exclaims, "I had nothing to do with that. The men you hired told me everything. What would Mother say about this?" "Don't bring Mother into this, Gary. How dare you? If I was ever to have anything to do with this, I would certainly not have you taken away by brigands." "Enough of this," Lord Thurman shouts. "I challenge you to a duel, you worthless dog." I offer to be his champion for the fight. Lord Thurman holds up his hand. "No, my friend. This is a fight that I must do myself." Fine, I guess I'll just stand in the back then. Everyone clears the center of the room as the 2 combatants face off, brother against brother. Now let's roll initiative for them. Okay, so the brother goes first, and he hits for 9 points of damage. Now it's Lord Thurman's turn. Uh-oh, Lord Thurman missed. Now on to round 2. The brother swings his sword and hits for 5 more points of damage. Oh no, this doesn't look good for the brother. Whatever shall they do? Having an active non-player character who feels like just a regular old member of the party, that is great. And sometimes those NPCs are going to be interacting with other NPCs, and that is also perfectly fine. The problem happens when the NPCs begin taking center stage away from the player characters, having scenes where they're only interacting with each other. This reduces your players to merely being observers rather than active participants in the game. And as much as the scene might sound great or work well in a cool movie or a book or something like that, it's just not that much fun to do in a game. Now, in the example skit that we just did, the player characters are at least present for the NPC scene. They might be able to inject themselves in that scene and basically interrupt this Game Master's solo performance. What's worse are NPC-only scenes, essentially interludes where the Game Master might show some scene where some of the bad guys are talking or plotting whatever their next devious move is going to be. Again, those might work great in a movie, but in a game, it's just not that much fun for your players to be held captive and watch their game master play with themselves. So game masters, my suggestion here is try to avoid scenes where the NPCs are going to be center stage and just talking to other NPCs, or at least keep those scenes as short as you can. You know, one quick exchange, just kind of a back and forth. But beyond that, really just summarize the high points and get back to your players, who once again should be the stars of the show. Number 3, the Tinkerer. Tinkerers are game masters who love to tinker with house rules, customizing the game that they're playing. Now, I personally like house rules. I've shared some of my own on different videos before, and I see nothing wrong with house rules in general. But what makes a game master into a tinkerer isn't the fact that they employ house rules, it's really how they employ them or how often. A game master who might add or ignore what seems like a minor rule might inadvertently cause other parts of the game to break down. Or they end up destroying the balance, making something suddenly too powerful or too weak further down the road in the game. And what seemed like a really cool idea at the time they decided to do it, then starts having larger and potentially game-damaging effects as the game continues moving forward. I wrote a skit for this particular one where a dungeon master is wanting to beef up their players by changing the con hit point bonus into a con hit point multiplier, and then by 5th level, 2 of the players had over 100 hit points and they didn't even care about death anymore, while another one only had 15 hit points and the balance was all thrown out of shape, but it ended up running a lot longer than it needed to, and I don't really think it was that funny. So instead of that example skit, let's talk about J.J. Abrams' Star Trek Into Darkness. In that, J.J. decided that teleporters can now send you across the galaxy, that would be cool. And then later, when a character died, Bones whipped up some sciencey magic blood and brought that dead character back to life. Now, in the context of only a 2-hour movie, that works. But if you were to keep that going in some sort of universe, we can now teleport completely across the galaxy, so starships are completely obsolete. Who needs those anymore? And also, now that we've got this magic blood, death is completely meaningless. So in the context of a long-running game, what might seem at first like a fun or an easy fix to some sort of perceived problem or limitation can quickly break down if the game master doesn't think through their house rule far enough into the future and what overall effects it might happen on the game as a whole. This is why in my video about learning a new system, I urge that game masters first try a game's rules out as written, see how they work, and then apply that experience when employing their own house rules. Otherwise, you might end up breaking your own game. And habitual tinkerers can even be a bigger problem if they're also guilty of number 4, inconsistent. When it comes to house rules or particular game master rulings that a GM just has to do in the middle of a session, sort of on the fly because they're asked a question, they don't want to stop the game and look in the book for an answer, they just want to keep the game moving forward, that's just part of the game, and players do understand that. But what players don't understand is when that starts becoming inconsistent. If one player gets a bonus or a penalty to something one day, and then the next day when they're in the exact same situation, they don't get that bonus or the penalty they got before, they get understandably pissed off about that. More so if it ends up being that one character gets a bonus to do something and then another character in the exact same situation doesn't get the bonus for that. It starts becoming difficult to play a game when nobody in the room understands what the rules are because they keep changing seemingly at random. Now sometimes a particular rule or ruling does have to change, such as the game master made a call, maybe on the fly just to keep the game moving forward. They didn't want to slow it down, but then after the game they then opened up the book, they took the time, looked it up, and they discovered that they did it wrong when they did it. Or maybe after the game they thought about it and they started thinking about the long-term effects that ruling that they made real quickly might have on the game, and they decided that no, we really shouldn't do that again moving forward. That's fine, that happens, but if it does, game masters need to be upfront and tell their players once they realize that they're not going to be doing that again. So either before the next session or at the very beginning of the next session, they need to inform their players that something has changed and preferably tell them the reason why for that change. But don't just wait until the middle of the next game when your player tries to do something that they did in a previous game just to inform them that, nope, we're not doing that one again. And game masters, if you do have to make a correction to some sort of rule or ruling that you made before, and you do have to announce to the rest of your players that moving forward you're going to go do it a different way than the way that you did it that one time, just stop picking with it after that. And now for the last game master mistake, the rerun. You guys ready to start the campaign? Damn right, brother. My space smuggler was born ready, and I'm looking forward to trying my secret agent out. Awesome. So the campaign begins as your ship is hurtling through jump space. You're carrying a cargo load of scientific equipment, and as the ship completes its jump, you realize that the planet before you is no planet that you recognize. Aw, crap, a myth jump! I'm gonna start working with our nav computer and see if I can figure out what our location is. What all do we see on the sensors? A trio of ships, their designs unfamiliar to you, start heading your way, and then a scratchy voice comes over the comms ordering you to stop in the name of the Karkong Empire. Have we even heard of this empire before? No. In Dweebles, the nav computer says that it's found your location. You guys are 10,000 light years from home. Aw, damn, this is gonna be awesome! Whole campaign's gonna be us trying to get our way home. So you guys ready to start our next campaign? Damn right, brother. My former Navy captain was born ready, and I'm looking forward to trying my new psionic warrior out. Awesome. So the campaign begins as your ship is hurtling through jump space. You're carrying a cargo load of scientific equipment, and as the ship completes its jump, you realize that the planet before you is no planet that you recognize. A myth jump? Again? I'm gonna check the sensors. A trio of ships, their designs unfamiliar to you, start heading your way, and a scratchy voice comes over the comms ordering you to stop in the name of the Karkong Empire? Exactly. Dude, is this just the same campaign again? No, your characters are different. So? Yours aren't. We just did this story. Yeah, but we had so much fun with it, and I figured, hey, let's do that one again. Rerun game masters are ones who try to recapture that excitement of a particular scenario or a particular campaign by running it again. The problem is that the particular magic of a campaign or a scenario just can't be replicated to the players who played in it before. And what was originally new and exciting for them now feels like a cheap, straight-to-video knockoff of something vastly superior. Now, that's just if the players of that game are the same. If a game master has a particular story or adventure that they like running, and they like running that for a lot of different groups out there, then that's great. Run it for as many groups as you like, you're probably going to get better each time you do it. However, even if the players of a game have never seen this particular scenario before, and they might not even know that you've run this scenario before, a game master should never try to force the exact same experience upon those new players, essentially trying to railroad the game into them recreating all the details that the previous group did when they did it. You know that particular trope in movies, where a lunatic might capture some victim and force them to act out like there's someone that the lunatic lost, and now talks to them like they're the lunatic's, dead mother or ex-lover. It's like that. But in this case, the game master is the lunatic, and all the players are the victims that are tied to a chair and wearing the dead mother's clothes. Again, it's perfectly fine for a game master to run a new group of players through some particular adventure or scenario that they ran an old group through, but game masters should never then try to force that new group into reenacting the actions of the old one. They have to make their own magic and not just live somebody else's. As I've always said, game masters are going to make mistakes. Hell, I've made just about every single game master mistake that's out there, and I'm going to inevitably make more in the future. The trick is to learn from those mistakes, and not just your own blunders, but the ones that you've seen or ones that you've heard about, and try to avoid falling into those traps in the future. And that is the only way we can get better. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews and how-tos, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, amigos, y'all have a great day. So are none of us even going to mention that Mike changed his mustache? Okay.